What happens when a small but powerful question shakes the foundations of a room? This emotionally gripping story follows a little boy holding a Bible to his chest as he interrupts Donald Trump during a church address with a life-changing question. Would you forgive your attacker? The attacker in question is the man who attempted to take Trump's life during an election campaign. Before we get into today's powerful story, I want to take a moment and ask, where are you watching from? Drop your location down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our emotionally stirring and thought-provoking storytelling. It begins in a grand church filled with people gathered to worship. The congregation was buzzing with anticipation, not just because it was a beautiful Sunday morning, but because of the day's unique guest. Donald J. Trump, a name that stirs strong emotions for many, was there to speak, not as a politician or a leader, but as a man touched by faith, as someone seeking clarity and perhaps absolution. What happened during that gathering, however, changed everything. Trump stepped up to the podium. His tone was solemn yet warm, and his words echoed across the church. I'm honored to be here with all of you, not as a public figure, but as a man who believes in faith and the extraordinary power of God's grace. Life doesn't give us second chances often, but when it does, it's because of Him. The congregation nodded. Trump's presence that day wasn't entirely about his political past or future. It wasn't even about his fame or controversies. It was about a deeply personal moment, an event that had nearly cost him his life. He paused, scanning the crowd. Many of you know this already, he continued. A while back during the election, there was an attempt on my life. It's an experience nobody can truly prepare for. One moment, you're campaigning and thinking about policies, and the next moment, everything feels fragile. It made me question everything. His voice wavered slightly. The church fell silent as he took a deep breath. The truth is, that experience made me reflect in ways I hadn't before. Was I angry? Yes. Did I feel betrayed? Certainly. But being angry forever? Well, it didn't sit right with me. And so, I turned to this. He motioned to the Bible resting on the podium. Because the Bible teaches us about the healing power of forgiveness. He opened the book, and his voice softened as he read aloud. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. He looked up, his gaze steady. That's Romans 12, verses 17 through 19. And believe me, I've read those lines over and over again. But it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to live by them when you feel wronged. The church murmured softly, many agreeing with the sentiment. Trump continued, I realized that holding on to hatred for that man, for his act, wasn't punishing him. It was punishing me. And so I began to ask God for the strength to forgive, to set myself free from that burden. Just as he was about to turn the page, a small voice interrupted. Would you forgive your attacker? The room stilled. It was as if time itself paused. The voice belonged to a young boy, no older than 10, standing in one of the pews. He was holding a Bible close to his chest, his eyes wide with innocence and curiosity. There was no malice in his tone, no challenge, just a yearning to understand. Trump blinked, visibly moved by the boy's sincerity. Your name, young man? He asked. Matthew, the boy replied. Well, Matthew, Trump said thoughtfully, that's one of the most important questions I've been asked, and it's also one of the hardest to answer. He stepped away from the podium as if seeking clarity through movement. Forgiveness is easy to preach, but hard to live by. When someone tries to take away your life, your future, and your family, it feels impossible to forgive. I struggled with it for a long time. For the days after that attack, I was consumed by anger. I wanted justice. I wanted revenge. But then I remembered something my mother used to tell me. She'd often sit beside me during tough times and say, "Donald, you can't hold on to anger forever. It doesn't hurt the other person. It only hurts you." She was right. Carrying that negativity, even when it's justified, feels like carrying a boulder on your chest that never gets lighter. Trump turned back to the congregation, his voice clearer now. The Bible talks about this so often. It's no coincidence. We're told, "Make allowance for each other's faults, and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others." That's Colossians 3, verse 13. If God can forgive us for all the ways we fall short, who are we to withhold forgiveness from those who wrong us? Matthew didn't lower his gaze. "But have you forgiven him, sir?" he asked again, softly but with determination. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Even Trump took a moment before responding. "I'm trying," he admitted. "And I think that's important for you to know, Matthew. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's not instant. Some days I think I've reached it. Other days I feel that anger creeping back. But each day I pray on it. I pray for strength, not just for me, but for him, too." The crowd murmured again, touched by his honesty. Trump smiled faintly. "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." That's Matthew chapter 5, verse 44. I'm still learning how to do that, Matthew. But I believe that when we forgive, we open the door for redemption, not just for them, but for ourselves. For the first time, the boy smiled back. "What we forget about forgiveness," Trump continued, "is that it's not a favor to the other person. It's a gift to ourselves. Anger is heavy. Revenge can consume you. But forgiveness? It sets you free. And it lets you use your energy for what matters: your family, your faith, and your future." The church filled with soft applause and murmurs of agreement. The boy sat back down, his Bible still cradled close. Trump's closing words were simple but profound. We live in a world full of pain and division. But forgiveness is the bridge. It's the way forward. And in forgiving others, we honor God's teachings and the sacrifice of Christ himself. The message lingered even after the speech had ended. People left the church that day not with answers, but with questions for their own lives. Could they forgive their enemies? Could they find it in their hearts to set themselves free? And as you listen to this story, what about you? Who in your life needs forgiveness? Who do you need to forgive? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. And always remember, the power of forgiveness can change not only lives but the whole world. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.